Behind every single study, every piece of research, there's a kind of hidden philosophy, a core belief about how the world actually works. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain on the really powerful ideas that drive qualitative research. And we'll start with a pretty simple question.
Just think about this for a sec. Imagine a car accident, or a heated political debate, or heck, even a family dinner. You've got multiple witnesses, right? And every single one tells a slightly different story. So, who's right? Whose version is the objective, capital T truth? That question, right there, is the front door to this entire way of thinking. And that brings us to our first big philosophical pillar, ontology. Now, I know that sounds super academic, but don't worry, it really just boils down to one simple but profound question. What is reality, anyway? And this slide just lays out two completely different answers to that question. On the one hand, you've got the quantitative view. It says there's one single, solid reality out there. It's like a block of granite, just waiting for us to come along and measure it. But then, on the other hand, you have the qualitative view, and it says, hold on a minute. It suggests that reality is subjective, that it's shaped by our personal histories, our feelings, our culture. It means that my reality and your reality can both be completely real, even if they don't match up. And this is the absolute game changer. For a qualitative researcher, those two different stories from our witnesses aren't a problem that needs to be solved. No, those stories are the data. The goal isn't to play judge and figure out who's right. It's to understand the rich, messy, and totally valid reality that each and every person is living in. So this leads us to the next logical step. I mean, if we accept that there are all these multiple subjective realities floating around, then how on earth can we claim to know anything for sure? This is the epistemological question, another big word, but it just means how do we know what we know?
And again, we see this fascinating split. The traditional view says knowledge comes from being distant and neutral, kind of like an astronomer looking at a star through a telescope, trying not to disturb anything. But the qualitative view says that's just not possible. Knowledge isn't something you just find, it's something you build together. It's like a conversation or a handshake. It's co-created through the relationship between the researcher and the person they're talking to.
And that's exactly why this idea is so important. Instead of pretending that who you are, your background, your beliefs, your identity doesn't exist, you actually put it right out on the table. Your identity as a researcher isn't a contamination to the project. It's a crucial piece of the story. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
So what is a positionality statement? It's really just an honest declaration. It's the researcher saying, hey, here's who I am, here's where I'm coming from, and here's how all of that might shape the way I see this topic. It's all about transparency.
Okay, let's move on to our third and final pillar. This one is about axiology, which is just a fancy way of talking about values. And it asks a really simple question. What role do our personal values and ethics play in our research? The traditional quantitative ideal is to try and create a totally sterile environment, to design a study so perfectly that the researcher's biases and values have zero impact. But the qualitative perspective looks at that and says, come on, that's a fantasy. We're human beings. Our values come with us everywhere we go. So instead of trying to do the impossible, the goal shifts to just acknowledging those values and being honest about them. I absolutely love this quote because it reframes the whole mission. The point isn't to become a robot totally stripped of any perspective. It's to be an honest human being, one who recognizes that we all see the world through a unique lens, and then has the integrity to say, hey everyone, here's what my lens looks like. And guess what? There are actual tools for this. A reflexive journal is a big one. It's basically a diary where the researcher keeps track of their own thoughts, feelings, and assumptions as they go through the study. It's a tool for self-awareness so they can be accountable for how they might be shaping the data. Okay, so after all this talk of subjectivity, multiple realities, and unavoidable values, you might be asking the big question here. Is this stuff even legit? Is it real science? Where's the rigor? And that is the perfect question to ask.
And here it is. This might be the single most important takeaway from our whole chat today. The strength, the trustworthiness, the rigor of this kind of research has nothing to do with pretending to be some objective, value-free machine. That's a false start.
Instead, real qualitative rigor is built on three things. 1, being totally explicit about your assumptions. 2, being reflective about how you might be influencing things. And 3, being completely transparent with your entire process. The rigor here comes from honesty, not from the illusion of neutrality.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. In our news, in our history books,
Even in our own daily lives, we're so often pushed to find the single objective story. But if we take these ideas seriously, what rich, complex, and vital truths are we missing by always demanding just one? What do we lose when we forget that every story is always seen through someone's eyes?